From the City of Angels, you are listening to the James Salazar Media Podcast. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about the arrest of Donald Trump and SPACEX blowing up their ship on April 17th. So let me strike the music, and I'll meet you on the other side.
Engage.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Say hello to my little friend.
No, I am the father.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
And welcome to the James Salazar Media Podcast, where you get your dose of pop culture, politics, and futurism. I'm your host, James Salazar. I am a futurist and an identity redesign specialist. I help people create a more powerful intellect and identity to compete in this new futuristic economy. How is everyone doing? A lot of stuff has happened. There's been the arrest of Donald Trump, some gun violence in a school. SpaceX is about to launch their heavy booster with the spaceship on top. And last but not least, we got some TV shows called Picard and Arc that I want to review. But let's get into what is in the news right now. Last week, Donald Trump was arrested. This was an unfortunate event. Democrats, when they first started to go after Donald Trump, was some very serious stuff about colluding with Russia, him being in the pocket of Russia, very concerning stuff, and basically they were unable to prove it, and later on it was proven that the opposition party pretty much made it up. But still, there's people who believe it lock, stock, and barrel. Even though it was manufactured, they don't care it's manufactured. They feel like they need to believe it because they don't like Donald Trump. And now they're coming with actual trying to arrest Donald Trump, and they did. And for campaign finances, paying off a hooker, basically, with campaign finances. But most people, even people from the other party, think this is a frivolous lawsuit, and it looks bad on the Democratic Party because, it looks like they're trying to imprison their political rivals. But America has a short attention span, and at the end of the day, it failed. Which was good for the country because they didn't give him a perp walk and they didn't get a mugshot. And that's what you wanted. Democrats knew that they weren't going to be able to convict on this, and they're probably going to drop it coming pretty soon here. They're going to try to act and like it's a serious thing to them, but it's not really. They just wanted to make Donald Trump feel foolish. And conspiracy theorists say that they wanted to be his base to be so riled up that they will accept nothing less than his nomination, because the only Republican Joe Biden can defeat, has a great chance of defeating, is Donald Trump. I think Joe Biden has ran this country so poorly in every aspect that any Republican could beat him, except the polarizing figure called Donald Trump. And I don't see if there's any recourse. And if that's their end game, it could possibly work in their favor. Donald Trump, the polarizing figure, and Joe Biden is a decrepit old grandfather who has Alzheimer's. And some people who just might ride out the grandpa instead of bringing in the polarizing figure. That probably would make things better, but divide the country more. So, what are you going to do? Right? Donald Trump and the Republicans. Donald Trump is an egotistic person. They have no choice, but they can't pick Ron DeSantis because Donald Trump, I guarantee you, will run as a third party. He won't take it. He really has no loyalty to the Republican Party. He expects the Republican Party to turn on him, and he'll run as a third party and guarantee Joe Biden's win. So that's what I think is going on. It's a shame. It is the very first time in our country where we arrest. I don't know if it's the first time. I think they attempted it, but where they, he surrendered because they were going to arrest him. And, they didn't get that bite. They didn't get that perp walk. They didn't get that mugshot. And pretty much it sort of doesn't feel like it's happened at all. That they just subpoenaed. It feels like they just subpoenaed him as opposed to it was a warrant for his arrest. So I don't know what you want to do with that. There's some political ramifications for the Democrats. But at the end of the day, whoever the referendum is on, will lose. If his referendum's on the economy and Joe Biden and how he ran things and the Democratic Party trying to imprison their political opponents, then they will lose. If it's about Donald Trump and November 6th and how he talks and how he comes off, and he could possibly lose. It's the moderate, the people in the middle who vote, because the Republicans are going to vote Republican and the Democrats are going to vote Democrats, but it's the people in the middle who choose the president. And whatever's going on at that moment will be the telltale. So it's a race that is overstates and it is only calculated 1 to 2 weeks before the election. What happens 1 to 2 weeks before, maybe 3, whatever surprises that each party have against each one of those candidates, whoever has the biggest hit, the hardest drop, will determine who might be president. That's the way it works now. What are you going to do? SpaceX on April 17th is planning to blast off its Starship with a super heavy booster, have it go into orbit, detach, have the 2 boosters land, and have the spaceship fall into the sea safely. And if that works, that will be the very first major flight for the spaceship, the ship that will go to Mars, or a ship just like it. And this is the very first step from making that happen. If that's successful, they will go into a total orbit of the planet or to the spaceship. Then whatever one, they'll do the other. And then they'll go orbit the moon. And then they'll land on the moon. And then they're heading off to space, to Mars. That's pretty much the timeline if everything is successful. Now, there'll be multiple launches in between there, but those are the stages that we're trying to hit. Orbit around the Earth, orbit around the moon, land on the moon, maybe orbit around Mars, maybe land on Mars. That's what's going to happen. So we're looking on the 17th, but the weather's not looking good, so it might be pushed back. But it's the Aeronautics Administration is going to give the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Let's hope for a thumbs up. If we can keep on this timeline, we can see SpaceX go to the Mars by the end of this decade. Whether they live, that's a whole nother prospect, but we're going to attempt to throw, and there's plenty of adventurous individuals who are willing to sacrifice their life to do that, and we salute you, astronauts of SpaceX. And next week, I will come with headlines from the world of Futurum. We're going to hit those really hard, but there's so much we need to talk about. So much we need to talk about today. Gun violence. So, it's the same thing over and over again. That people think gun control works. Believe me, if gun control works, I don't know if I wouldn't be against it or not, even though I'm a conservative libertarian. But it just doesn't work. Gun control is not crime control. It does not stop. It relies on people obeying the law. Okay? That's what it relies on. Relies on people obeying the law. And most of the time, the people who are doing these evil acts are not obeying the law. Most of the time, not ironic anymore, everybody knows that most of the time, it is done by people who are clinically insane. That we have no idea that they were a danger to other people and to themselves, because they usually are committing suicide by shooting up schools. And we had someone who was transgendered this time. And even if you believe, this is my, I don't know if, we're not going to get rid of guns because it's in our Constitution. But you could get rid of the argument of the clinically insane by dealing with the clinically insane. Right now, especially in California, we have about 60,000 homeless, and that was before the pandemic. It's probably up to 100,000 in California alone, and many of these people are mentally deranged and a danger to themselves and everyone else. But we have no apparatus to deal with them. So we should bring back the asylum industrial complex, whatever you want to call it. And some people need medicine and be monitored for years and months, and some people need to be monitored for the rest of their lives. And we don't believe in executing old people or crazy people, so it's just something I think we're just going to have to pay for. That's one thing, one of the few things I believe, and I'm perfectly fine with people taking taxes out of. And we have a big mental health problem, and everybody who seems to be shooting up these places with AK-47s or AR-15s tend to be clinically insane. And here's the thing. We've always had guns in this country. More people had them by percentage. The only thing that's changed is our culture, not the gun owning. It's our culture. There are certain flaws with a self-governed society, and you tend to run into these problems. But, and I'll say this, and I always say this, if you are someone, when someone's shooting in a school and you're trapped in there, if you're someone who wishes they would have, I wish someone would have signed a law to stop this, and not, I wish I had a gun to defend myself, then you are sheep. And some people are sheep, and I get that, and they get upset. They get upset that wolves exist. But there are shepherds, and we got to allow shepherds to be shepherds. We should allow principals who want to, not forced to, teachers who want to carry guns to defend themselves in their schools, but we definitely need to, at all cost, put armed guards on our public schools and all public places where people are gathered. We must prepare for the world we live in, not the world we wish it was. Not right now. At a certain time, you just got to deal with the issue at hand. And someday we'll look back and say, I can't believe we live like that. That's how our society was acting. And we'll look back at it and reflect and say, oh my God, much like how we're going to look back at COVID and all the liberties they took for us under a lot of lies and propaganda. And we're going to say, I can't believe we let them take this much liberty from us and led us astray on certain facts about COVID. We're going to say that. Look, we're going to look back and say, and we're going to look back at this time and say, how stupid of us that we didn't have armed guards there to stop evil actors. We'll look back and see and look at us back then and how foolish we were, that we didn't clearly see that there was a sickness in our society, and that sickness is brand new. Guns are not. The sickness is brand new in the last 40 years since Columbine. It's been a thing, and we all had guns, but the people have changed, and there's many reasons why we think that people are more crazy, and people are have these mental problems that we're unwilling to deal with, and the brain goes all the way around. But for some people think when you write a law, it's like Nicodemus from The Secret of Nymph. You ever watch it? His words are all glowing. And they're magical because he's writing something down. They think that's what happens when you write a law, that it naturally disarms evil people. Well, my friend, I save all my stupid ideas for religion. I don't put them in government. Unfortunately, guns laws, gun control is not crime control. It's not murder control. And if you think you're a naive person, and you can write as many laws that you want, it ain't gonna stop people, and you're not gonna get 400 million guns out of United States of America. It's not gonna happen. They did this gun bribe program in Australia. People just gave away the guns they didn't want and kept the guns they did. You're assuming that they gave millions of guns away, that they disarmed themselves. They didn't do that. They just gave the shitty guns that they didn't want. They get that rebate in the money and kept the guns to still protect themselves. There's still guns in Australia. You got to be naive to think that happened. It wouldn't work here. And the advent of right now, you can get a 3D printer and print out a gun. And that information is freely available on the internet. My friends, the cat is out of the bag. We have to start dealing with the minds of Americans. And right now, the minds of Americans, they do not believe in truth. And they do not value all life. And they're easily triggered and easily offended, and they feel entitled to attack people who don't believe as they are, or because of the trauma that they feel they've had. This is mental sickness, and now we have someone. Look at, in this society, you have every right to be wrong. I personally believe that men cannot be women and women cannot be men. I believe it's a sickness, but I think it wasn't an issue. You have every right to be crazy in this country as long as you're not a danger to yourself and everyone else. That's the thing. You can be crazy if you're not a danger to yourself or anybody else. But once you start becoming a danger, we're going to have to deal with these people who are mentally deranged issues, because it's bleeding into violence. It's bleeding into violence. And the most violence perpetrated upon them hurting themselves. So we need, as a society, stop condoning mental illness, because it's not happening. Especially if I was crazy and I said, I want to chop off my arm and put a blender on it, you would think I was crazy and you would put me away. But we'll let people chop off their genitals because they believe they're from the opposite sex, which is not biologically true. And it's no more crazy than me trying to make myself a cyborg. When it comes to kids, you can't do that. You can't compel society to believe a lie, but you have every right to believe a lie in this country. You have every right to be wrong as long as you're not a danger to yourself or anybody else, or you pushing your ideas or trying to make people believe these lies, then we're going to come into issues. We cannot let clinically insane people take over the asylum. And that's just the way I see it. So, well, say goodbye to these. Goodbye. Bye-bye. And boom. Let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of that. So, TV show called The Ark. I like it. It's about definitely we destroyed the Earth, same old trope. And there's an ark with a group of people going to this planet that we found that has life. And they run into a meteor shower and they get jacked up. But because they're waking early, and a lot of people died during this, a lot of information, a lot of things have happened while they've been put in cryo sleep. A lot of shit is going on, and they're dealing with one problem with another. And it's fun just to watch every episode. There's a problem, and they solve it. And they solve it in clever ways. But there's always a problem. And once you know that's what you're watching, you enjoy it better. If you're looking for some overarching conspiracy or you're waiting for them to get to a planet, no, I think they're going to do a couple of seasons of them constantly running into our problems, conspiracies and problems and mutinies and spies. You'll enjoy it. If you're waiting for them to get to that planet, don't wait for that at all. I really enjoy this show. It's entertaining. The acting starts off campy, but the actors get into their characters by the end of the second episode. So, but it's good stuff. It's theoretical science as well as there's some great characters in it, and most of them are original faces. So it's a good, fresh breath air to see these people create this character and you not being able to put their face from a different show. So I like that the most. And yeah, it's a good show on Sci-Fi. The Ark. I think you will like it. I know, too. I give it 4 potatoes so far. Where's that? Now, yes, Picard season 3. This is the best season. So basically, they were tying in this Picard, the first 3 seasons. They're tying off these stories that weren't really resolved in the TV show. Data dies in the movie. Nemesis, and there's things unsaid and undone, and Picard deals with that by dealing with Data's consciousness or programming, and we close out that story. And in season 2 we close out the Q story, which is pretty much the overarching story of all Star Trek from the first one to the very last one. And they deal with his storyline. And now they're bringing the whole crew back and they're ending their storylines. But this story is top notch. Very exciting. Very Star Trek, but new twist. More sophisticated writing. And it's delving into old storylines that's making the situations that they're dealing with prominent later on in their lives. And they have to deal with unresolved issues. Or things they thought were resolved, but not. And we're touching on old storylines, and they bring all the characters back, and it's great. It's wonderful, and you feel like there's a big ending here, but it can go further. I don't know what they're going to do, but out of the 3 seasons so far, I would give Picard 4.5 stars. I have to see one more episode left to see how good they end it. I think there's 2 episodes. So I'm going to withhold my judgment as of right now. What I have enjoyed, the interaction with the old characters. Some characters, new characters, okay. They're just there because they were there in the beginning. But there's some new characters, good bad guys. great great story of a smart enemy that chess pieces, they're way ahead, and our old friends, our old heroes are having to catch up, and it's good to see how they try to fill these problems. So next week I'll be talking about the end of The Mandalorian, and come up a couple other shows, but I'm going to end it here today. Hey, as you know, you can follow me on any of my social media programs. You can go to the QR code and you can get to my Facebook page, my YouTube channel, all that stuff. You can also, once you go to JamesSalazarMedia.com/link, if you want to get some life coaching, public speaking, or see some things I'm affiliated with, you can go to that link in the show notes. It'll link you to everything I have. Same with the QR code. Take a picture of that code. Follow it to wherever it needs to go. You'll see the stuff that I am doing, that I have for you, other shows that I have. So, my friends, as the storm of life come against you and you find yourself on your knees, stand tall and take a look at that storm and say what my sensei Jack Burton always says: give me your best shot. Strike the music. Have a good one.
Thank you.